record. Okay. So our esteemed alumni expert today is Frankie Koethe, who graduated from CTAHR with her MS in Natural Resources and Environmental Management. Frankie is currently working with Koethe Mountains Watershed Partnership as the Community Outreach Liaison and does contractual work for Oahu Resource Conservation and Development Council as the advisor to the Hawaii Women Farmers Network, and is a grants manager for agritourism mini grants in 2020 to 2021. She is a wonder at doing everything, and I count myself very lucky to have had the opportunity to work with her on numerous outreach projects. I went ahead and sent Frankie the questions that were sent in with your registration forms, so she will be starting off with those after her little talk story. But please feel free to add any others in the chat that we will open it up for you guys to ask questions on camera later as well. So without further ado, let's meet our alumni expert, Frankie.
Hey guys, all right, I'm gonna get my screen shared right here. All right, how's that look? You guys can see okay?
Yes.
All right, great. Well, thank you guys so much for having me and featuring me as an expert. I mean, I'm still pretty young and I learn every day, but I'm here to share with you guys. There are some experts in the room, so if there are some other questions, you know, we'll call on them and I'll put them on the hot seat. But yeah, like Jesse said, I kind of have a jack of many trades. I wear a whole bunch of different hats. And all of it really stems from my time at the University of Hawaii, both in my undergrad and then in NREM with my master's. And Jesse met me, oh my gosh, we met when I was just finishing my master's and I was full-time with Oahu RC&D. And she gave me a site tour and I literally had no idea what was happening on that property. So I've come a long way since the time we've met. And it's so nice that, you know, we're still friends and like can call on each other for things like this. So yeah, I'm gonna start from the beginning. That's me and my mom. I'm missing my dad and my sister, but really, I'm just gonna talk to you guys about my journey and how I got to where I'm at today. My mom and my dad well, my mom was born and raised here and my dad came here in high school. But my mom was kind of like a flower hippie child and was super big on getting us outdoors. That's me crying at Koethe and Kauai on vacation. I'm not sure why, I don't know. I was a pretty grouchy kid, but she was pretty adamant about us being outdoors. I think she had me doing the Olamana Trail at age 6 or 7. So I wasn't good at sports. I was bad at soccer, softball, those kind of things, but I always liked going hiking with my mom. And when she dragged my dad along too. But you know, that it kind of stemmed like to being outdoors, and she sent us over to St. Francis, which doesn't exist anymore, but it was an all-girls school and it was very family oriented. And that's really what drives my journey is being connected with my family and my home, and that appreciation for the legacies that have been set forth for myself. So when I was going through school at St. Francis, we were class of 54. We didn't have a lot of like diverse career opportunities, but for some reason I knew I wanted to go into marine bio. I think what it actually meant was I wanted to do something that would impact our home and our community. And at the time I was paddling, so I thought marine bio was the route for me. And I wanted to stay home for school because my sister had stayed home for school and it was a lot less expensive. And the main driver was that I wanted to paddle, and I couldn't do that if I went to the mainland. So I ended up doing long distance canoe paddling. Well, up until this year, I still paddle, but I did the Molokai Channel, Nawahineo Kekai 5 times, and a bunch of other long distance races in between there. And then I got to see Jessie at races now because she is a novice paddler at Heilani. So it's always fun to go and bug her and watch her races too. and watch her get medals, because when you do open women, you don't get medals anymore. It's so difficult. But yeah, and Waikiki Surf Club is kind of another family that I have too on the side that have taught me a lot about the ocean, Hawaiian culture, different types of protocol, knots, and just being out on the water and what that means for myself personally and physically. So during my time in my undergrad, I switched my focus to zoology because it meant I could take more diverse classes at the time. There was more flexibility. And I was really enjoying taking art classes and speech courses and getting a well-rounded education. And so zoology allowed me to do that. And I was able to do it with honors. And through that, I met this man here, Dr. James Maragos, who's a marine biologist with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who ended up working with my grandpa at the time, which I didn't know until I had worked with Jim. And I worked with him on Kauai for, I think, almost 2 summers. And we went around interviewing people and getting people's stories. And I realized that community outreach and engagement was my strong suit. Sometimes Jim would rub people the wrong way, and I had to mediate sometimes, and in order to gain people's trust, I had to continually show up and be there for them in order for them to share their stories about cultural resource changes and resource concerns and things like that in order to document it. So that was a really great opportunity, and I thought my time working in Kauai was done, but it wasn't. And that was really the door opening to community engagement and outreach for myself. And UH also offered me the opportunity to be a part of the Associated Students of the University of Hawaii at Manoa, or ASUH. I sat on that as a senator, then a senator at large, and then vice president for my last 2 years in the 100th and the 101st Senate, I think. And that taught me a lot about policy, decision making, writing resolutions and bills, communicating with legislatures, and doing a lot of tabling and marketing and event planning. So I didn't know that all these things were going to pave the path for what I was going to do in my professional career, but they did. I also joined ASUH because of my sister. So our careers have completely diverged, but I did follow her footsteps a lot, which helped me. And being home allowed me to spend time outdoors, not just in the water, but up Mauka. These are my best friends, Shannon and Carrie, and they're like my little hiking cohort. So they really pushed me to go do some trails that maybe weren't the best idea at the time, but it really made me love being outdoors, and I knew I always wanted to get back out there and do that as a career. I just didn't know what the title was. And so when I was finishing my undergrad, I just didn't quite feel like I was done with my learning. And I had taken a course by Dr. Mark Hickson in the biology department called, it was Communicating Science to the Community. And it was all about how to translate journal documents and journal articles into a language that was impactful for community and how to do that. So writing op-eds, press releases, and the impact that can have. And that's where I was starting to really thrive and really enjoy myself. And I wasn't struggling it was a grad course, and I wasn't struggling to get a C+, which is what was happening in like Selma-Lek, I'm not gonna lie. But so I was like, okay, maybe I need to like go into grad school, and NREM seemed to fit the bill, and it did. I really enjoyed myself there for 3 years, from 2014 into 2017. And I worked under Dr. Mehana Vaughn and Dr. Linda Cox to do a socioeconomic model around the kupuna in a small community in Kauai up in North Shore. And I really enjoyed my time, and it all stemmed from this course, her course called Kaiulu, which I think she still teaches. I know she shapes it based on what's happening. She worked on the floods for a bit. My class was before the floods, so really just recording kupuna stories. And that's really where I enjoyed my time, like talking intimately with community and hearing their stories. Some was like real heartbreak, but others were just so moving, and it just showed like how important it is to bridge the gap between research and university level and the kupuna who've lived down on these beaches for so many generations. And that's really, I really enjoyed my time there. So my research in a nutshell was taking the concerns of those kupuna and then comparing the having two sets of community on that same beach rate those concerns and see where they lined up. So it was 100 tourists on that 2 mile stretch of beach and 100 residents. And then basically the results showed they had the same concerns because it's a very specific rural tourist that travels to that area. So if you take away the resources then and you create like a hotel type of environment, you're going to lose your tourism, that specific type of community, and it could ultimately collapse. And that was all pre-COVID, so you know things change now. But I learned a lot, especially about just journal article writing and things like that. But during my time, my wonderful advisor, Dr. Linda Cox, said, "Hey, you need to start applying for some jobs." And I was having that existential crisis of what am I going to do with myself. And so I applied many places, and Oahu Resource Conservation Development Council, which is a mouthful, Oahu RC&D, took me in as a project coordinator. In my interview question, they asked, the director at the time, Jean, asked, "So what's your experience with agriculture?" I'm pretty sure my words were, "I have none." I couldn't lie, I just couldn't. But it was the community aspect and being able to talk with people, and the fact that I was a little bit more level-headed in my understanding and thinking, that was the reason that they hired me. So I worked with farmers in Mailiili, which is a small section of Lualua Valley in Waianae, to give out about $65,000 of funds for conservation development. So vegetative barriers, windbreaks, cover crops, all the things I had no idea what they were until I started working. So it was a huge learning curve, but any job is. And I did that for about 3 years. That was about the timeline of that project. But within that, I was allowed so many opportunities. Oh, hey, it's the mission. So Oahu RC&D's mission is to improve the quality of life of people by encouraging conservation and sustainability activities, really focused on agriculture. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. And some days looked like this, where I was out on the farm doing site visits and taking fun photos, and other days looked like that. And I was trampling into bushes, trying to figure out if somebody's sediment basin was overfilled or needed to be cleaned out. And that meant getting a little pokey. This picture really does give me nightmares, like every child in Hawaii's nightmare right there. But yeah, when I wasn't doing that funding project, I was doing other side projects to help, you know, maintain my time, because nonprofit, you really are grant funded. So I was trying to find other projects to fill my time, and one of them was the Hawaii Women's Farmers Network, and that was really hosting professional development and projects for all walks of life of women on all the different islands of Oahu. So I did workshops in Kauai, Maui, Molokai, Big Island, and Oahu for 2 years. And then this past year, they were all virtual. So that was like statewide. But yeah, I learned a lot through that. I was more like the kind of the liaison, if you will. Like I was moderating and booking everyone and finding the speakers and making sure it fit the right communities. So I was making sure I wasn't bringing the specialist on marketing design for agriculture products who lives in Maui to the Kauai workshop, things like that. And just making sure people fit their communities. And for me, it was really about knowing people and also knowing that people like good food and making sure that happens. So that was really the success of my project's food. And that really brought these women together, and we were able to like find more and more projects, and it opened up new opportunities for me, including a trip out to San Diego with a cohort of women. That's Pono Correa, who's also a CTAHR grad from Double D Farm and Ranch. This is, oh my gosh, she changed her name, it's not my fault. Jewel Rain from Big Island. This is Noe from Lokoya Farms, and Brittany Anderson over on Big Island, and that's Sugar Hill Farmstead. So we all went together to the Women Farmers Conference under the National Farmers Union, represented Hawaii, and got our voice out there for agriculture on a national level. So that was really cool. And it just offered more opportunities for me to publicly speak about agriculture. So I presented at both this is last year's Hawaii Ag Conference. I moderated a session on the Women Farmers panel. And this is actually, I think, at Hawaii Conservation Conference. Michelle Gorham hosted a bunch of us, and I think I spoke on a program we developed called 808 Planner. Time flies. I don't know how I'm remembering these things. But yeah, I mean, I got so much out of that. And as of October of 2019, I actually moved positions over to Ko'ola Mountains Watershed Partnership. However, my work wasn't done with agriculture, and the new director, Dave Elliott, who's also my colleague, asked me to stay on for some other projects on Oahu RC&D. So that's what I'm doing now, is I advise the network of women to make sure it's going the route that it should, give my 2 cents. The new person in charge, India Clark, is amazing. So I'm pretty sure she's running the show, and I'm just there to tell her good job because she's amazing. And then I also have a collaborative grant through them, through Oahu RC&D. That's now, I'm sorry, follow this. It's the funding's through HTA to support agritourism. That funding went to Go Farm Hawaii, and Go Farm Hawaii had Oahu RC&D manage the mini grants. So that's me. I'm managing those mini grants of 15 people. That's everybody from Kohana Farms to Lidgate Farms on Kauai. And I'm actually in the middle of progress reports, so making phone calls and seeing how their projects are going. Pretty small grants, $3,000 to do an agritourism supplement on their farm. So that's what I'm doing on the background. My full time right now is with KMWP as their outreach liaison. And this is kind of like where I was like, oh, this is where the position is that, is for me. I get to be outdoors, I get to talk to people, I get to learn every day, and especially from community, even in COVID. On MLK, this is my crew of 5. It's Kupu staff, and they wanted to come out for a service day. So we set something up at the Pali Lookout. And of course, it was torrential rains. And 3 hours after this, they closed the Pali. That didn't stop us. As I was setting up, I said, Frankie, you're stupid. But, we made it work, and it was really fun. It's so nice to have the ability to go out, make an impact with people, and do something small for the environment. And really, the staff culture is what I love the most. We're a staff of 11. It's me and one other field crew member, Shayna. We're the only 2 girls, and the rest are men, which is very new for me. I'm used to a majority of females stemming from high school. So that was kind of a shock for me in the beginning, but I am in love with all of those guys, and they're such a wonderful family to have. It's been over a year now, but time flew so fast. I mean, the first week that I came into this position, I was like, okay, I'll take a week to like get myself oriented and know the mission and, get my desk ready. And Brad, the admin guy, was like, hey, so we scheduled you for a presentation on Friday at KCC. And I was like, oh, okay, sounds good. So I dove headfirst into the deep end, and I haven't looked back since. It's just been such a wonderful opportunity. And getting to connect with other partners on the state and federal level are just great. The mission of KNWP is to foster the partnership and those landowner collaborations that help to perpetuate our water resources. And we do that by protecting and enhancing the forests of the Ko'olau Mountains. Because as you guys know, native forests are the reason, that biodiversity is the reason for our strong watershed recharge and our aquifer system. KNWP manages 110,000 acres. Really, we're working in the priority watershed resource areas, so up top in the Malka zones. Usually that work by the field crew is by helicopter. As for me, I am the education portion of KNWP, so that's really doing talks like this, working with different schools and organizations who want to do service projects, setting up curriculum, especially now setting up virtual curriculum and other restoration projects in some of our lower elevation sites. So we have 5 restoration sites. Sorry, they grow and change. That's why I'm questioning that. And I'm the one who's managing those at this time. And when I say I'm managing them, I'm the one who hosts the volunteers there, but we have volunteers who we have set up there regularly. And then also the field crew like has a big hand in making sure a lot of the work gets done and works with me to do that. Oh, there's my map. So those are all our partners. And so we, like I said, the field crew works up here and my sites are like a little bit down lower. So like Pali Lookout, Manana Ridge, Willy Willy Nui Trail. We collaborate with Protect and Preserve Hawaii out in Pia Valley. Moana Loa, it's on Alamaha Street, but it's in Moana Loa is our dry forest restoration project. So it's like I knew, yeah, they're right there. This is all on our website if you ever want to check it out. So yeah, this is what some of my days look like, going out with community. This is in collaboration with Kupu and Malama Mauna Loa, going up Willy Willy Nui Trail to go take out some strawberry guava, some grasses, and then also to install their rain gauge. And we do trips by like twice a month usually. With COVID, everything is private now, but you know, we make do. And most of my days look like this now, virtual. This was, I think this was right at the start of COVID. So we still have our 2 Kupu interns. We hired Brenner, so that's a nice change. So we've got some new staff now from this picture, but yeah, I'm working from home mostly. And then twice a week I go into the office and work in the shade house, do some propagation, a lot of flyer design and annual reports and quarterly reports, all those things. And then I can dabble in grant writing, which is something I'm challenging myself to do. So I'm very lucky that JC, who's our manager, gives me that flexibility and is willing to talk through some projects with me so that I have a really diverse job that is never the same every day. But yeah, that's me. Thanks for listening to like my storyline, but I did want to address those questions that you guys had for me. So let me pull those up real fast. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so you can just see me. Hi. 1 second, let me get those questions. And then I'll check the chat if there's anything new too. Okay. So one of the questions was, what things do you do in your various roles at KNWP and Oahu RCD? Sorry, it's hiding by my screen, and the Women Farmers Network. I think I talked about that a little bit, but in detail, like at KNWP, if you know outreach people, this is normal, 2 phones. So I'm the one who's talking with community and taking those inquiries. For example, I had a call today from some guy who lives in Hawaii and wanted to let me know that one of our partners has a landslide and how can we communicate that to him to get that taken care of because of all the floods this week. So I've had a few calls like that. And then I get a lot of email inquiries about internships and trying to make new projects so that we can provide opportunities for students, which is something I'm pretty passionate about. And then, yeah, it's, for me, it's really just like I run by quarters. That's really how I work, is quarter by quarter. So this quarter is reports, is annual report, is grant writing, and then making sure we have events set up for January through March, that being one presentation and 2 outreach events. And then in between that, all of our other collaboration projects, like I see JB on calls for Rapid Ohio Death, hey JB, and setting up for High Sam that's coming up this month. So yeah, a lot of design work, surprisingly, and being as detail oriented as possible, because the things I produce will eventually go public, and the last thing I want is a typo, which is like my Achilles heel, I swear. Typos seem to haunt me in my sleep, everywhere. So yeah, and then there's like web design that I have to do, and being creative on the social media accounts, and trying not to burn myself out. I think I burnt myself out in April when I did like 20 posts. That was dumb. So now I've got it set up to like 15 per month. I've got a schedule. It's a lot of like self-management, because I could easily just like work, and then the next day I can't work. So really trying to just through COVID manage myself. Yeah, and then when I'm in the office, I spend a little bit more time outdoors, because we have plants that are propagated and need to be checked on. If they have any pests, to get them cleaned. And that's more of a learning curve for me, because I am not a botanist by trade, but I'm learning to be, and I rely on our partners at DOFA and DLNR for help a lot of times. So super grateful for them.
Frankie, sorry, real quick. So when our students are looking for internships, I send them to you?
You can, yeah, I can see if there's any opportunities. We're gonna have, I believe we're doing Kupu over the summer, and then we're also doing KOIP, the Kapili Oihana internship program with Kamehameha schools, which I believe you don't have to be from you don't have to be alumni to get into that program. You just have to register. And we always host one per summer. RB, what kind of species are you propagating? Oh my gosh. We're propagating a lot of stuff for our site out at Alamahamoi, so it's a bit drier there. So a whole bunch of Milo and Co. We have kukui, but the kukui is really, we're bringing that back down, because we put a lot in the site already. And technically it's not a native species. But we had some at one of our other sites, and we had like little keikis just growing, so we potted them up and they seem to be doing well. Before we plant stuff like that, we're always checking with our partners too. And what else do we have? We have ule. We have a whole bunch of koa that's been propagated. What else do we have? Ilima and Aali. That's what we have at the moment. So everything's pretty much ready to go out. We're trying to empty the shade house because it's planting season. So we're hoping to get that out in the next month at least. Yeah, that's a great question. And then someone had a question about Understory and Fern work. So we recently just started doing some Fern propagation, specifically with Neke. One of our field watershed protection assistants, Matt Derry, who just actually went over to Kauai, he got us started on propagating Neke and getting them out in the field. But we also do some other ferns, kupu kupu, both cordifolio and exaltata. We do hapu'u once in a while. Usually we're doing hapu'u because we found it outside of a fenced area and it's been damaged, and then we just put it somewhere where it can be protected and survive. We're not bringing those back. And then, sorry, I'm missing something. Oh, and palapalai, that's the other one. We don't use that much ferns because a lot of our sites, we're really trying to establish the canopy first. So we're holding off on the the understory at the moment for a lot of our places, using a lot of kipuka style, so weed mat, planting trees in that, and then having them connect over the next 6 to 10 years, and then establishing the understory. So yeah, thanks for the questions. I think I answered most of the questions.
We had one more that came in, which was how did excuse me, how did your time in NREM help prepare you for what you're doing now?
Ooh. Oh my gosh. A lot of the coursework surprisingly helped me. I know not many people will say that about their departments. I think I took away a lot. The GIS 477, that was huge. At Oahu RCND, I was doing conservation planning. So that meant drawing shape files and creating different line segments to sketch out people's properties and erosion control management issues. So yeah, GIS was clutch. Yeah, the soil conservation class with Susan Crow, where I learned about Russell. Surprisingly, I had to use Russell, which is like a model for determining if your property like has really bad soil erosion, in a very small nutshell. And then just the soft skills of NREM that I learned, you know, like hitting deadlines and being able to communicate with your supervisors in a timely manner. Like that was huge, especially because when I worked at Oahu RCND, that was my first real professional position. I mean, I had other jobs and stuff like that, but my first job like out of high school was a lab assistant in oceanography, and I got to say I wasn't very good at communicating with my supervisors. Cheers to Dr. Glazer for taking me under. I mean, he did a great job with me. I wasn't a great lab assistant, but I did wash a lot of dishes. But NREM really taught me that communication skill. And at Oahu RCND, my boss actually worked out of Illinois and New York. So having to work with her schedule and communicate properly so that I kept her in the loop and I wasn't missing deadlines was really important. Especially when money is on the line in a nonprofit, that, you know, it's really motivating. Other skills too, I think there's the NREM or the GSO NREM grants. That was my first or second opportunity to write a grant. And I think that's a good like motivationer, and it really teaches you about deadlines and little reports. So that was super helpful. Yeah. And then just the community of people in NREM itself, like those are people I still rely on for things. When I have questions, I know I can ask them. And it's really a very small community conservation. A lot of people come through NREM or TPSS, I mean, CTAHR in general. And it's a really nice way to find a common ground and open conversation ups. So yeah, I think that's what I got out of NREM. I got a lot out of it.
Hey, do we have any other questions? Anybody want to pop on, say hi, ask a question? Oh,
Yeah, I had kind of a larger conceptual question maybe, and I'm thinking about extension versus outreach.
Sure.
Does Kola Mountains Watershed Partnership change management or adopt management based on community input? Or is it really the partners that drive it and you're informing the communities what you're doing?
Yep, it's the latter. So KMWP is definitely driven by the partners themselves. Mm-hmm. And I would say that my role is really communicating the work that we're doing with the partners. Mm-hmm. Not to say that we don't take input from community. When I sit with the partners, I do share if there's some kind of input for them to take that into consideration. And JC is really open to that type of communication as well.
Okay, great, yeah. Thanks.
No problem. Sam, can you talk a little bit more about the Women Farmers Network? Oh yeah, I mean, I think that owning like any kind of diversified agroforestry or a homestead, if that's possible for you, to go for it. Just on a personal note, like, you know, that's a very sustainable lifestyle to have. I would say I have a sustainable job, but some of the things that I do aren't sustainable in my lifestyle. And, you know, that's a great way to go. I'd say things like the Women Farmers Network is just a great way to communicate between farmers. The reason we created it was there was a lack of communication between women farmers. Not to say that they don't talk, but everybody's so busy on their own properties, it's hard to pull yourself up from your row crops to go to your neighbor five parcels down to go talk with them because everybody's busy. So the network was really a way that brought people together to, one, learn together and get some really good resources, and then two, to collaborate and talk with each other. I mean, I sat down with a group of 40 women in Kona, and they came up with this grand scheme that they all needed like a traveling speaker device, but it cost like, I think they wanted a good one, so it cost like maybe $150. So they all chipped in for one, and they started rotating it out like as a little community rental thing. So you know, it bridges the gap between each other. So I mean, I can send it on the Oahu RC&D site. If you go oahuRCD.org/WFN, that'll take you to the Facebook group, and you can just request to join, and India will let you in. And you don't have to be a farmer yet. It can be something that you want to do and you want to hear from others. The mini grants, yeah, mini grants is an interesting concept because they are small. It's not something you can use to like really like pay your staff on a farm. It's really $3,000 to $5,000 depending, and they're usually very random. This is the second time I've done mini grants, and it's very unique. The fact that HTA offered this is really, really cool. And yeah, the projects that have come out of this are things from developing virtual farm tours to redoing their marketing, their rebranding, and using the money for that. And I think one farm on Maui actually is purchasing like picnic tables so that they can be socially distant, and upgrade their property so that it seems not that they're creating an environment that's COVID safe, but creating an environment that gives them a unique experience, but is also COVID safe, you know? So without some of these grants, they wouldn't be able to do that. So it just buffs up their properties and their businesses. So yeah, for me on my end, I'm really just, I mean, I wrote their RFP, I screened their applications, interviewed them, handle the W-9s, handle the mid reports, do the social media that's going to come out for the next 2 months for them. So there's a lot of work that comes along with it, but you know, it's all part of the projects, part of the hustle. So yeah. Oh yeah, Jesse, you're on the Facebook group. That's right, I remember adding you.
Frankie, do you work with Shannon Sand and Sarah Reckcamp? Do you know them? They're the two new NREM economists.
Yes, I know
You
Shannon
missed them when
very
they're
well.
at NREM, but yeah.
Yeah, she when she first got hired, we had a pretty long call, and then we actually had her hosted for our women farmer webinar this summer. She's
Okay,
awesome.
good.
Yeah.
Good. Because they started and then they got going and then COVID hit and they're here on the Big Island. So I just try to make sure that people make those connections with people.
Oh, I know. Yeah, we really enjoyed having Shannon on, and the resources that the new NREM extension specialists provide are so great. And that said, like all CTAHR extension agents have been so great to work with. Josh Silva, Jensen, Jerry, all those guys. They taught me a lot in order to do my job well. So yay for CTAHR.
Anybody else? Kawahi, I know you have a question in there somewhere.
Oh, Kawahi's here. Hey. I'm just seeing the list now.
So I have a quick question kind of about the volunteer activities that you're doing. So do you ever organize activities kind of like with lab groups at UH or classes, take them out to do a day, maybe on a weekend?
I have, yeah. Usually it's by request. So I haven't like gone to different professors and offered it. It's usually people coming to me just because I can't handle every week, or else I would go to every professor and tell them. But we've had HPU class, or like a club from HPU come out. We've had, I'm not sure which UH class come out, but it was before my time. It's been a while. We should probably try to do that more. I'm glad you brought that up, Barbie.
So, so this is for Sam. This might be like when we're able to go back from COVID. Have you ever brought like high school student kids out to do anything, Frankie, or is that because
Yeah.
Sam she does a mentorship program for us with high school students, and they're always looking for activities to do. So it might be good to do like a service project or something, maybe.
Yeah, we used to pre-COVID. We had the NHS for, I think it was Mauna Loa High School, come out and do some service work at one of our Mauna Loa site. And we've had projects with Pearl City High School. So yeah, if it works out and students can come out, we're more than happy to have them to take over a site, do a science project, things like that. More than willing. Just really depends on the DOE and what they allow. So we have in the works right now. I know we have like a small private group of like middle to high schoolers coming in March, but yeah, nothing school yet, like DOE. But yeah, Sam, reach out when it's time. We can work on something.
What about, so this is sort of a weird idea I just had. So me and Noveo have been doing stuff with like trying to get students involved with other organizations. Like we had a bunch of them do some stuff for Bishop virtually, because they're trying to kick off Plants of Hawaii, which is going to be the new website where pretty much anything you need to know about plants in Hawaii, you can go there. So nice. They are actually using a lot of things from CTAHR's website. Mm-hmm. So one thing I was wondering is, what if for some of the propagation stuff, the students propagated some plants and like, with on the schedule, not just all of a sudden, because no one wants a bunch of plants to have to outplant out of nowhere. But, they did some propagation, and then those could be given to, say, KMWP or maybe even DOFA to be outplanted. Have you ever done something like that?
We haven't. We've watched some of our partners do it just recently. I think people probably weren't relying on it previously, just because of like biosanitation and things like that. But with, lack of funding and need for reforestation, it's not something that we're, shutting the door on. It's just something that needs protocol put in place before we establish a project like that. So yeah, it's a great idea. Protect and Preserve Hawaii is really doing great work like that right now with Willy Willy seeds on their property. I believe in that valley, they propagated, or they replanted out over 100 Willy Willy through community growing the plants out. So they did a great job with that. But we could talk more about that, RB, on the side for sure, and see, what needs to be established to make something like that happen. Because, involving the community and having them be able to get their hands in the dirt, watch something grow, and then put it in the ground, and then 10 years later take their kid there and be like, this is the tree I grew. And like, it's really impactful. Yeah, we just need to make sure we do it right before we rush into anything.
Yeah, let's talk more about it. I'd also like to get Hawaii Botanical Society out there to do a day. Kay is here. Kay is our secretary, so hopefully she'll be on board.
For sure. Yeah, Sam. Yeah, Mililani Middle School. I actually, I walk my dog past that a lot. I live just like right down the road from it. And Yumi guys are doing amazing work with the schools and collaborating with them for propagation. Yeah, the two watershed partnerships have different strategies to do the work that they do. And we try to align our practices. So it's something that, I could probably work with Yumi and talk more about what they do, but I know they're managing with the schools, they're Nanakuli, a couple others, to do some really massive grow outs, which is cool. Yep, and Malama Learning Center is in collaboration with that as well.
All right, we have like 10 minutes left if anybody has any further questions. Not, I am going to, sorry, you have to hold on. I'm working with a different computer here, so I am trying to figure out my life. Okay, I'm gonna put the evaluation link in the chat. And so if you guys can fill out the evaluation for us for Frankie, that would be wonderful. Just helps us know how we're doing and what you guys like, and how we can make things better and wonderful for you in the future. And just want to thank Frankie so much for joining us today. I know you're super busy and you have all the gabillion things that you're doing. And thank you for everything you do for us out there in the community. We are so thankful for you and proud of you, and you are amazing. And thank you so much for all you're doing.
Oh, thanks, Jessie. And thank you everyone so much for listening in and your great questions and collaborative ideas. Looking forward to working with a whole bunch of you, sounds like. So yeah, I put some links in the chat as well. Some resources that I work with, and then if people are looking for career opportunities, I put some other links in there as well. So yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.